Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be l'ilun nishmas our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, B'schus l'refuah shalema Bekarov, Meshalom ben Sar Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today, we are on page 248 in the Ora Vigdor, for those who are following along. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when there's a pause in your income. What happens when times are tough and bills aren't getting paid? What happens when you're not making as much as it used to? You know, there are many times when times are good that we're not concerned necessarily because money is flowing. Maybe even have a really healthy savings account. And then there are times where that savings account, that rainy day fund, that kind of runs dry. And now you're kind of really running into the situation where you're day to day, right? And you're paycheck to paycheck. And it's difficult. It's a very mentally draining place to be when you're unsure if you can go to the grocery Wednesday night or if you have to wait for Friday when payroll clears in order to make food for Shabbos. And so today we're going to talk about that a little bit. And so he says like this, in regard to what is proper for a person who trusts in Hashem for his livelihood, if his income is stopped on occasion, and he doesn't even have money to purchase food, that he should say to himself, the one who brought me out into this world, Bizman Yedua ve'eis Yedua, at a particular time and at a particular moment, and he didn't bring me out into this world a minute earlier or a minute later, he is the one who is now withholding my livelihood at a particular time and a particular day, because knowing what is best for me. There was a time in your life when you were born, and Rav Av was explaining that Hashem does everything in the exact moment that you need it, in the perfect time. And so when you started your career as a human being, God put you in a specific place at a specific time from a specific person, so many specifics, so perfectly timed, so perfectly done. And so what Rav Av is saying is that when you are challenged with that test of your livelihood being stopped, being paused, not having enough, stop and think to yourself that the same one, the same God who put you in this world in the most perfect time and the most perfect place is also going to provide for you and make sure you have it the most perfect moment possible. And he says further, the same concept applies when his livelihood comes to him in a limited way, with no more than just enough money for his food, and just enough money to pay the electric bill, and everything is really just, and he should remember something. He should say to himself, and that this is not the first time something like this has happened. Every person, when they go through a struggle in their life, and they're living paycheck to paycheck or just barely enough, or maybe even they have to go and ask a friend, a neighbor, someone else for help, for a handout at that time, maybe they have to borrow money. Just remember something, that's not the first time in your life that you've been living from paycheck to paycheck or from hand to mouth. When you were born, when you were a little child, your mother nursed you. And you got every feeding was precise. Hashem gave your mother just enough milk to make sure you had enough of a feeding. And then when you got hungry again, Hashem made sure that your mother had again enough milk to be able to feed you again. And then that ran out, and then you didn't have in the refrigerator left over anything. No, you waited for the next feeding. And so just so you know, that the same way today when you're 40 years old, and that you're worried about how you're going to put food on the table, just think back for a moment that there was a time in your life that Hashem made sure He didn't let you go. He made sure you didn't starve. He made sure you had enough of a feeding, right? He made sure your mother had what to give you. And the same choose over here. But Hashem is the one who provided sustenance for me at the start of my life with my mother. Was just enough food for each day. Hashem continued in this way until exchanging it for a better way when you got old enough and you weaned off of your mother from nursing. And then you went on to sustaining yourself every single step of the way until today when you are responsible to pay your own bills. And now you're worried? What happened to the last 30, 40 years of your life? Right? You weren't so worried, and it got done. It happened. And before you even earned the dollar, when you were a child, when you were a baby, when you were an infant, when you were a young child, all those times, you never made money, yet you didn't have to worry. The same thing. And the limited supply did not harm me at all, meaning, and what he's saying over here with the limited supply is that at that time, you didn't have extras, right? You're a child, you're a baby. Your mother nursed you, and you had just enough for that feeding. And you didn't have, a surplus. It wasn't a warehouse with leftovers put away for you. No, it was just enough, and you didn't have to worry. In the same way, I will not suffer harm with the supply he now provides me, but barely according to my daily need until the end of my life. The point he's trying to make is that this mindset that when the times are tough, and it's not easy, I'm not trying to take that away from anyone. What Rav Av over here is trying to help us with the anxiety level of it, with the difficulty with it. So us waking up in the morning and not sure how we're going to make dinner that night. And that's what Rav Av is trying to help us out with, is that if we just change our mindset a little bit, just add to it, just think back. God's not going to let you down, right? It's going to happen. It's going to work out. It might be in the most comfortable way, but it's going to happen. And part of that, he says, that it is part of his doing your shtadlus. If you are struggling financially and you cannot go to the grocery tomorrow, then it means you might have to reach out to someone, that you should do that. I know it's not comfortable, but part of the hishtadlus is that as well. And it's not a pleasant place to be, but it's also the wrong mindset to say, I'm just going to sit back and not do anything. If you're out of a job, your responsibility is to go look for a job. Now, whether or not you find a job is irrelevant. Now, you have to go and do your part to look for a job honestly. Don't talk yourself out of every single job. And the same thing, if you don't have enough money, go ask a friend, borrow money or ask for a handout. It's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to ask for a handout. Nobody wants to ask for assistance. But that's just something that has to be done. And that's something that Hashem wants you to do. But the most important part is over here is to remember that Hashem is not letting you down. Hashem is not going to, you're not going to go to sleep and starve. You're going to eat tonight. Your children will eat. He will make sure of that. And that's the overall real point that he's trying to make over here. And a person, and this is an important point he makes. If you change your mindset and you start thinking to yourself, this is Hashem. Hashem provides for me, and even though times are tougher now, I know He's going to take care of me. And for whatever reason that I don't have enough today, it's because it's for my good. The same way when I was a child and I had barely enough of a feeding, and I made it through to the next feeding, and a few hours later, but Hashem did it for my good, and He made sure I had every single step of the way. If you have that proper mindset, Chavas says you are already winning, because Hashem and Shemayim, He sees that your mindset is that you trust Him. That you built out that trust from the beginning. And that if you have that trust, you're already winning in the aspect of Hashem. And Hashem is going to reward you later on with a lot more than you even thought you'd want or needed or deserved. You're going to gain a lot more out of that. And this is exactly the thing that happened to the Yidden in the Midbar. For 40 years we were in the Midbar and we were worried about food. And Hashem said, I'm going to send you man. Every single morning, you walked outside your door and there was food over there. And when the days ended, you didn't have anything in the refrigerator. You didn't have any provisions put away. No, you woke up at the next morning, and what happened? Right outside your doorstep, there it was. There was food again, and that's what Hashem was trying to do. Let the people go out and gather each day's portion of food on its day. They couldn't prepare for tomorrow, right? We learned that in Chumash years ago. There was a great lesson of the month, to trust every single day. And that actually 40 years in the Midbar, what that did to the entirety of Klal Yisrael is it taught us principles of Bitachon. For 40 years, every single morning, we had to wake up and get for that day's rations. That's it. And what that caused us to do was change our mindset. Our mindset developed into a way of trust, of Bitachon in Hashem, that Hashem tomorrow will provide for us. That I'm not worried tonight that I have an empty refrigerator, because tomorrow I am going to open my door and there's going to be a box of food over there. That is something that we built up for 40 years in the Midbar. Even though it was difficult, but Hashem did that to us as a favor. He did that to us to teach us the mindset that's going to keep us going for thousands of years afterwards. The Yidden came to Eretz Yisrael, and they came in there and there was a barren land. But no, we trusted, and we worked the land, even though there was no water or lack of it, right? There was so much to do, but at the same time, there was so much trust that had to be put into that. And that's the lesson that we learned from that. And today's takeaway is, even though it might be difficult, even though you might not see how it's going to happen, just know it will happen. It's going to work out. But you need to trust that it's going to happen. You need to start doing that, because that, if you do that trust, he says, V'yeh niska alzeh, he'll be rewarded for that attitude. That alone is already your win for that day. And every day that you do that, you will get another one and another one and another one. And there's always going to be a different timing in life that's going to be something else that's lacking. Today it might be money to put food on the table, but tomorrow might be something else. But when you build up that stamina, that trust in Hashem, and that's what we're working towards, it gives you a much easier life. It gives you a much easier time to deal with the hurdles, to deal with struggles that come your way. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today, and I love you all.